Seth, you are the only one here that has watched Terrifier 2 and Pray for the Devil. I know a lot of our followers have been requesting some sort of review, so do you want to give your quick thoughts on those two quickly?
Yeah. Would you prefer me to start on either? I think I can go into Terrifier 2 a little bit more because Pray for the Devil.
Yeah.
Okay, so Terrifier 2, it's not my sort of film. I don't really like the kind of disturbing, somewhat, let's be honest, there is a plot in this one which is better than the first, where there was no real driving force or driving narrative. There is a kind of driven narrative in this one, but it just didn't do it for me at all. The effects are good, especially even the budget. Like the budget was $250K this time, so it did get a bit increased. The practical effects are good. The effects are very, I understand why it took them years to do so, but I have to kind of look at the film from my opinion and stuff like, the narrative. It was just so dumb. And also Art the Clown is like, he's not a serious horror villain. Like there's some things he does in this thing that it is quite like a comedy at certain points, which for a lot of people, like maybe George, he might like because he doesn't take himself too seriously, like a self-aware villain. But for me, yeah, it just kind of, it didn't really do it for me. I think the main negative I had with this film was the runtime. Like 2.5 hours on a slasher film, which is all out slasher with shock value, with no real narrative. 2.5 hours is a big ask for people to sit through that. Like that's 2.5 hours is a long film. Like for example, All Quiet on the Western Front, obviously I watched yesterday, George watched Friday. That sort of film deserves that sort of runtime because there's a lot to kind of go through. 2.5 hours on a slasher with no narrative is kind of crazy, to be honest. But I can see why people would enjoy it. There is sort of slasher elements. There's a lot of like mental kills. If you're a fan of that genre, you'll probably like it. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5. So kind of like just below average. But I think a lot of people will get enjoyment out of it. Like George, I don't think you'll love it, but I think you'll get kind of enjoyment out of it at certain scenes anyway. But it was, yeah.
I've heard people call it the best horror movie of the year. I've heard people call it the worst thing.
That's fucking mental.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's mental. It was. I can get why people would like it, but I think saying it's the best horror of the year is like.
Let me just say that was a much nicer review than your TikTok review, which
did you see that
they did get the Terrifier 2 official account to reply and say to this review just roasting this movie. Thanks for talking about our movie or something.
I didn't roast it. I always preface my reviews by saying that this isn't sort of movie for me. But then I went onto my TikTok yesterday, I saw the notifications. It was like it was the distribution team for the film, and they said what was it? Thanks for giving your thoughts on our
thanks for talking about our film.
Full stop at the end. Like, no emoji or anything. I was like it's so awkward.
Yeah.
And to be fair, they still follow me, and I'm not quite sure why.
They follow you?
Yeah, they follow me. I'm not.
That's so funny.
But to be fair, why are they going to mind? It's a budget it's a film with a relatively small budget. My video got quite a few views. They're going to like, aren't they?
That's what I meant that's what I was talking about when I texted you. Like they probably did not expect this movie to blow up the way it did across social media platforms. So regardless of your bad or average review, they're just happy people are talking about it, especially someone with 150,000 TikTok followers like yourself.
Hey, I do not have 150,000.
What do you have?
135?
Okay, say round up, bro.
You're dreaming, George. That's what it is.
Dude, delete.
All right, talk about Pray for the Devil.
Pray for the Devil. It's not much of a fun.
If you want.
It's so bad. Like
worse than Halloween Ends.
Oh, do you know what? I give it a 1 star. It could have easily been a 0 star. I know that doesn't even exist. This is the sort of film that is like offensively bad. Terrifier 2, I completely understand why people like that. How can you like Pray for the Devil? Every horror stereotype you can think of, this falls into. Do you remember that phase where it was like every 2010s horror was like this supernatural exorcist thing where it went through all that sort of film and there were so many like ones that would just follow the same tropes and the same concept? This is that. Every scene was predictable. But what these horrors in 2010s managed to do was they had relatively creepy jump scares. And they had things that would kind of satisfy you in a scary way where they'd like shock you now and again. This didn't even have successful jump scares. Like, that's the thing. It had one which made me like go, like, nod your head back a little bit. But like, apart from that, it was just it was just stupid. Like, the only thing I could say positive wise is that some of the performances were okay. That guy was. Did anyone watch 13 Reasons Why? Obviously, Tyler, you watched it.
Yep.
You know the guy who's the gay guy, the smaller guy, his friend. I can't remember what his name was in the show. The main.
Yeah.
I think I can see what he looks like, but I'll have to.
He was it. He wasn't. Okay. He wasn't great. But it was.
You were about to say he was great.
No, it was just a thing where it was like, it fell into every modern horror trope you could think of. It wasn't scary. It was predictable.
Was it Tony Padilla?
That's the one. Yeah. Tony Padilla.
I remember it now. Yeah.
I wouldn't even just recommend watching it. If you enjoy it, that's fine. I don't get it. Whatever. George, me and you disagree on a lot of horrors. You're not fucking liking this. Like, you are not liking this film.
I don't think I'm going to.
I don't know, man. Like, maybe I'm being harsh, of course. But...
You mentioned jump scares, and you and I are both very critical of using cheap jump scares as a scare tactic. My answer is Smile, but what was the last movie that genuinely frightened you using jump scares?
That's a good question. I think Smile was like, the jump scares were definitely effective at times. I'd probably say that, to be honest. Yeah, because as much as I thought they were cheap jump scares, they were done in a way that I didn't expect. This, when they even tried to do one, you knew what was coming. You know, like the camera would like pan round really slowly, and then a face would come up, and it was like, yeah, that was obviously going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe I'm being harsh, but I did enjoy it. I gave it a 1 out of 5 because the Colin Salmons or something, his voice is so satisfying, so it managed to reduce some of my frustrations throughout the film. That's one of the only positives I can think of, but I'll be honest. It wasn't good, but whatever. That's what it is.